All right, welcome back everyone to Letters of Light. We are going to be doing the letter Kuf. Okay, so Kuf is the 18th letter, and each letter has a special place in exactly where it's found. Not an accident. 18 is Chai, right? Tomorrow, by the way, is the Baal HaTanya's birthday or Yortzeit. Yud Chet Chai Elul is tomorrow, so it's connected to the letter Kuf, right? The Kuf is the last letter of Tzaddik. We said last week that Tzaddik and the Tzadi and the Kuf together is Tzaddik itself. So let's see what the Maharal says. The Maharal says that the letter Kuf alludes to Kedusha, holiness. And I actually put in a whole section, soon you'll see, about this concept of Kedusha. Like, what are we aiming for? We talk about Kedusha all the time. You hear it. You hear about God's holiness. You hear about a malach, an angel's holiness. We understand what these things mean at the end of the day, but let's make it practical. What does it really mean? So, as mentioned in the Gemara, right, the concept of holiness of God conveys that God is supremely exalted beyond all limitation. So when we talk about Kedusha, the Gemara is telling us that something that is kadosh is something that it is separated. It's separate. The word holiness in Judaism means separate. How do we see this? We see this in a Kedushin. A husband and wife get married, and they have these Kedushin vows, Kansur Kadosh. What's happening? She's saying that I am going to create boundaries between me and everyone else in the world and permit myself to you. And he's saying the same thing. I'm going to put boundaries between myself and everyone else in the world, but permit myself to you. The boundaries of a wedding, of a marriage, the limitations of your partner's ability to be with anyone else is where the bedrock of holiness comes from in a marriage. That's what Kedusha is. Kedusha, God is Kadosh. Why? Because He's separate. My marriage has an aspect of Kedusha because we've separated ourselves from everybody else around the world. The Rambam in Mor Nevuchim says, God is neither constrained by nor contingent upon anything within creation. He bears no resemblance to anything physical or spiritual. He is infinite and formless because God is unbound. His presence permeates the entirety of the universe. He's the canvas or the matrix. Everything is being operated off of, God, and so on and so forth. God is separate, but is also the essence of everything. So there's a duality. How can you be kadosh and be separate if you are, in fact, the thing, the substance that's woven through the fabric of all existence, woven through me and through you? Kuzari says, holiness implies separation, being set apart from the mundane. An object deemed kadosh is withdrawn from the ordinary use. A person who is holy operates in a higher spiritual plane. God's holiness signifies that no being, not even the loftiest angel, can be compared to Him. And therefore, God is the ultimate expression of what is kadosh. Okay? The association of letter Kuf with divine holiness appears both in the name and the form. Remember how we talked about the font itself and the way the font looks tells me a little bit about the letter itself. So the gematria, the numerical value of the word Kuf is 186. How do you get that? Kuf Vav Fe is 186, right? Which is also the value of Hamakom, the place, right? The place, Makom, the way is also used in Torah itself. Hamakom is the place where God says to Avram he's going to inherit. It's the place where Yitzchak is brought on as a korban, Hamakom, and it's the place where Yaakov Avinu has his dream. The Makom, by the way, which is so interesting, is called the place, because if I had to point to one place on the planet that is the most controversial place, the Makom, what place is that today? It's Jerusalem. And if I had to ask you where in Jerusalem is the most complicated, most controversial place in all of Jerusalem, what would you say? Har HaBayit. And I have to ask you where in Har HaBayit is, what's it called? What would you say? The Dome of the Rock, Even Shetiyah. What was that? That was the Beit HaMikdash. How crazy is this? This is the same story that Jews have been telling their children for 2,500 years. Since the first temple was destroyed, then we came back and rebuilt the second one, then we were exiled again the second time. We've been talking about the same exact story, this one place. And it's still relevant to us. And what do we call that place? That is the holiest place on earth. Right? Not an accident. Okay. The form of the letter Kuf, of the Torah script, can be viewed as a combination of the letter Resh and Zayin. Okay, which together equals, no, it's not 20, no, sorry, it's Chaf and Zayin, the end of Chaf and Zayin, which is 26, which is the gematria of Hashem Yud He Vav He. Okay, so the Kuf is an expression of God, the Tzaddik, the ultimate 100. Additionally, the hidden component of the letter, or also, by the way, what's 100? 100 is the greatest expression of 10 and 1. 10 is the first multiple of 1. 100 is the first 100th multiple of 1. So that's what is 1? 1 is Hashem. So Kuf is 26, and it is looks like a 26 because of the Chaf and the Zayin, and yeah. So you have over here, sorry, the Chaf and the Zayin, which is really 27. So in Gematria, you can go ahead and combine two numbers, even if it's one off, which is a cheat code, but again, it's not me. This is Sefer Hamidot, Sefer Kedusha. He says, additionally, the hidden component of the letter, when analyzing Kuf, as comprised of inner and outer letters, yields a value of 86, corresponding to the name of Elohim. And just interesting ideas of how we actually see the letter itself. But Rabbeinu Bachya, let's going back. His pasuk says, Kedoshim to you, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokeichem. What does God ask us to do? He asks us to be holy. Why? Because I am holy. God is separate, and therefore you should be separate. What is the possible relation between there be between God's infinite holiness and the holiness expected of man? Human beings are not innately holy. Rather, man's holiness is a reflection, a mere echo of God's absolute sanctity and purity. To elevate his status of Kedusha, a person must attach himself to God by aligning his actions with mitzvot, commandments. Why did God give us these commandments? He's bored. He wants to see what kind of tricks we can do. He wants to see if we could pay attention, if we could listen. Why is God give us, what's the purpose of the mitzvot themselves? Connection. The mitzvah is a connection, right? The way I like to think is like this. I'm going to celebrate my 27th wedding anniversary, God willing, on the 27th of September. Yeah, it's been amazing, a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Can't wait. I have no idea what I'm doing for it yet. And if anyone has great ideas, I'm working on it. I've been just distracted, but I'm working on it. And I could tell you that what I've learned in 27 years is that I know what my wife does not like. Right? I know the things that she does not want me to do. I know the things that she does not want to hear me say. Right? And I think of those as being the negative commandments. Right? There's two parts to the relationship. There's the things that you don't want your spouse to do. Don't do that, don't say that. It makes me upset, it upsets me. And then there's the positive commandments. What are the things that you do like? Do you like flowers? Do you like notes? Do you like it when I take out the garbage? Do you like it when what are the things that you do, the mitzvah aseh? So in the same way that the way I got to know my wife over the last 20 years is through all the things that she likes and she does not like. The way you and I get to know God is through his commandments and doing the things that he likes and does not like, right? It's about, that's how you build a relationship with anybody. You build a relationship with understanding their things they enjoy and the things that they don't enjoy. Rav Hirsch, in number 6 says, this is why the Torah does not describe the nation as Am Kadosh, a holy people, but rather, right, implying that innate sanctity, but rather Anshe Kadosh, Anshe, a people of holiness. Anshe Kadosh to you li. You shall be a people of holiness to me. The implication is that holiness is not inherent, but acquired, cultivated through self-discipline, mastery over one's instinct, and full alignment in body and soul to the will of God. What does it mean to be a holy person? A holy person is not a guy who's wearing a fancy frock, a long jacket or a fancy hat. Holiness has to do with the kind of person that you are. Are you striving for more? And we'll see what this means in a moment. Torah Kohanim says, holy is Hashem, independent of human action. Kadosh ani, I am holy. I remain holy whether man sanctifies me or not. God is outside of everything. You can't change God. Number 8, God's essential holiness is infinite and unchanging. Human conduct cannot affect his intrinsic Kedusha. It can only influence the manifestation of his holiness within the physical world, meaning my actions can determine whether or not I am bringing more Kedusha into this world or not. When a person transcends his natural instincts and elevates himself, Hashem's conduct of the world likewise becomes elevated. corresponding to the spiritual level of man, the divine providence, along with its miraculous interventions, becomes more openly revealed. How do I reveal God in this world? By becoming more God-like. I become less God-like, I am hiding God. God becomes more concealed. And therefore, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, this was such a long morning. Slichot, they catch up to you in the middle of the month already. So the idea over here is that on a spiritual plane, I strive for holiness because I want to be godlike, and in that process, I become more like Hashem. And when I become more like Hashem, I'm able to receive or draw down that positive energy into the world. Torah Kanim says, the Torah's command, Kedushim to you shall be holy, as implied, Prushim to you shall be abstinent, right? Which is not what you think it is. I'll explain. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, who told us about Prishut, is one of the rungs of the ladder towards holiness. Okay? What's he talking about? The Malbim says the first step towards holiness is refraining from explicit transgressions listed in the Torah, such as Lashon Hara, forbidden food, sexual immorality. The next step is voluntary restraint from behavior that, while not explicitly prohibited, dull spiritual sensitivity. A Jew should avoid indulgence in gluttony, intoxication, or vulgarity, and should cultivate the self-discipline to master desire and live with dignity and purpose, because ultimately that's what holiness is. If you have no self-discipline, you don't have dignity, right? If you're steeped in vulgarity and intoxicating yourself and living a life of gluttony, there's no way you could ever emerge to become someone who's God-like. You cannot be someone who's kadosh. The definition of a kadosh is someone who can set boundaries and restrictions. Now, to what degree? Rabbi, this is a trick. I feel like you're tricking me into something over here. I don't like it. Let me explain. This is the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, number 11b. This is like a big section of our conversation today. So the Gemara over there says that, this is Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. He says, Torah brings to watchfulness, zihirut. Watchfulness brings to alacrity, zrizut. Alacrity to cleanliness, nikiyut. Cleanliness to abstinence, prishut. Abstinence to purity, tahara. Purity to holiness, kedusha. Holiness to humility, ahanava. Humility to fear of sin, yirad. Fear of sin to divine inspiration, ruach hakodesh. And divine inspiration to the resurrection of the dead, tchiyat hametim. Okay, what's he talking about? Let us explain. This is a step-by-step process of understanding, right? Pinchas ben Yair's process to resurrecting the dead and having, a ruach hakodesh. Let's explain. At the end of the day, I told you earlier, the purpose of the mitzvot is for me to build a relationship with God, right? The same way, like I do those things with my wife when I'm a good boy and I'm being nice, hopefully, I'm being taken care of. If I'm a bad boy, I get the couch. Whatever it is, I get pushed away, either drawn closer or pushed away. So with God, it's the same thing. But the difference is that I don't see God and I don't feel God. How do I know that whatever I'm building is actually real? And the answer is complicated. Because on the one hand, on a spiritual level, there's no way to measure any of these things. We're physical beings. God is infinite. He's outside of space and time. How do I know if God's actually listening? It has to be something that I'm doing myself. I have to become the person in the relationship that's carrying the relationship. Remember, the one that loves the least is the one that is in control of the relationship. And therefore, if I believe in God, which I do, then I believe that the relationship, its ability to progress depends on my actions. Because if there's a God and He loves infinitely, because He's infinite, then I'm the finite being, I'm the one that needs to build that relationship, not Him. He's immovable. I'm the one that's movable here, which is strange because you don't think of God as being, lacking of anything. He's not. I'm the one that's lacking, and I want a relationship with the source itself. Okay. Judaism as a system, and the reason why you're here as practitioners of Judaism, students of Judaism, is because you either were very inspired by the works of the Jewish people, or you are a descendant of Jews who have fought tirelessly throughout the centuries, unwavering faith to maintain a connection to their Jewish heritage. And my question is why? Why do they do that? It would have been so much easier to convert, so much easier to not fight. Like you think about what's going on in Israel right now, I don't know how to measure, whether or not blowing up Hamas leadership in Doha is a good thing or a bad thing. I think ultimately in the long term it's going to be a good thing, right? Is it the right move? Not the right move? I don't know. Well, of course they got them. If they didn't get them, you'd see them parading and dancing in the streets, handing out candies. Of course, it's all psychological. They for sure got them, 100%. There's actually already a slip up. Some Hezbollah already said they called one of them a martyr, a shaheed, which means they died. So there's already, we know that they're not going to come out and tell us that we were successful, right? But I'm sharing it because it's so easy to kind of like lose hope in a situation that was designed to make you feel hopeless, right? And therefore, I'm reminding you that part of being a Jew means no matter what the circumstances are, I am never giving up hope. I'm never surrendering. I'm never retreating. That chutzpah of having this ironclad faith, an ironclad belief in, no, I'm going to prevail no matter what, is how our ancestors overcame more difficult. You think this is bad, what's going on in Israel right now? That was happening almost every day during the times of Rome. Men and women being raped, being crucified, burnt alive. I mean, crazy, these are crazy, tortured. Hannah had to watch her 7 sons being butchered and thrown into a boiling cauldron while hearing their screams. I mean, like, these are horrible, crazy, archaic, barbaric stuff that we thought we left behind. But I promise you, the world of our ancestors was way worse than the world that you and I are living in right now. They didn't have the luxury of sitting in a fancy building in Manhattan with air conditioning. It's too cold in here, with nice light and food on the table, but tea available to you. If anyone wants a tea, and you want to stay warm, get a tea. They didn't have that. They didn't have that there. And we do, and we take it for granted. We take it all for granted. But the one thing that they did have is this unwavering faith, a deep sense of connection to the things they believe in. Where did that come from? I believe so much of that faith comes from this piece that we're going to do together right now. This idea that Judaism ultimately isn't just a intellectual pursuit of a practice. Its greatest gift to the world is a deep understanding on how to build relationships. The purpose of a relationship is connection. The purpose of a marriage is unity. The purpose of Judaism is for you to build a relationship and to become one with God. That's Judaism. And the reason I believe our ancestors never gave up is because when you have that kind of experience with truth, this kind of experience is something that is divine and beyond, okay? It's very hard to ignore it and walk away. You can't unsee truth. You can't unsee something that you know is to be 100% factual. No matter what I do, I could never convince you that your mother is not your mother. And the same is true with Judaism. We struggle with it because we're so distant from it. But we're here because, ultimately, we come from people that recognize its truths. You can't unsee it. It's there. Okay, so, having said that, Gemara says that these are this is a 11-step process of connecting to God in the deepest way. So this is the first step. The first step is Torah. Torah brings to watchfulness, right? What is Torah? Torah study is the foundation of everything. Torah, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, right? It is the foundation. It teaches right from wrong and inspires a desire to fulfill God's will. If you see Jews who are religious, or they were religious, and they claim to be practitioners of Judaism, but they're doing something that is wrong, illegal, irresponsible. They're not living a life of higher moral principles. They are not practicing Judaism. They're selfishly using their Judaism for their own gain. That's not Judaism. So you go from Torah. Torah leads to Zihirut, right? What is Zihirut? Watchfulness, mindfulness. The Torah is the instruction book. What does it remind me of? There's a God. If there's a God, there's consequences. That's Zihirut, okay? Being vigilant to avoid wrongdoing, not only in action, but also in thought. This means living intentionally, avoiding automatic and careless sins. You and I want to be people that are living life of intention, okay? Zihirut, or zrizut, alacrity, zeal. It's not enough to be careful. What about being proactive? So you go from Torah to Zihirut to Zirizut. Okay, alacrity brings to cleanliness. Explanation, what? Enthusiastic pursuit of mitzvot and good deeds doing them properly, with the excitement, not sluggishly or out of habit. How many Jews are living a life of zrizut? We see people do all kinds of things, make brachot, come to Beit Knesset, they pray, they get aliyah, they make donations, but is that because they really believe in what they're doing? Or is that because of habit? Right? Is that because of, it's just ritual? So how do you make it meaningful? If you see someone who's a zariz, who's always running to do things, I used to live in Brooklyn, and both my neighbors were not Jewish. I had an Italian neighbor on my right side of my house, and a Chinese neighbor on the left side of my house. Both very nice people. But, I once overheard one of my Italian neighbor's wife say, "Oh, this guy's always running. I'm always running." They always see, they talk about me. The Jewish guy's always running. Right, where is he? He's always going. So they're always sitting outside, they're schmoozing, and I don't have time. I got things I got to do, and they want to schmooze with you. And I'm so sorry. I got to go. And for like 15 years, I lived there. I'm like always running. I've always had a very full schedule. So they're like, "Oh, this guy's just running all the time." And I'm thinking like, I'm a zariz. I got to get stuff done. I don't have time to sit on the lawn and like look at all the neighbors and wonder what they're doing. What are they running to? And I'm thinking, I don't have time to do that. Like I'm out there, I'm doing things, right? So like, to be a zariz means to live a life of meaning, but not to live a life of habit. Then from zrizut gets nikiyut, cleanliness. This is something you want your kids to do, right? So how do you get your kids to be more cleanly? First, they have to have some kind of a Torah. They have to have some kind of instruction. Then you got to put the fear of God into them, which is zihirut. That goes to zrizut, right? When a child knows they're going to get in trouble, what do they quickly do? Oh, mom's coming, quickly, let's run, let's clean everything up. Yeah, that's zrizut, right? And then that goes to nikiyut. Nikiyut literally means having moral clarity, right? Cleanliness brings to abstinence. Refining one's actions to eliminate even questionable or subtle unethical behavior. That's what we want. Not just avoiding lashon hara, but also gossip, exaggeration, or even the tone that could be harmful. What's pre-shoot? Abstinence, self-restraint. Now this all sounds like I'm asking you to become a monk. I'm not asking you to become a monk. I'll explain why. What is abstinence? Abstinence brings purity. Explanation: voluntary withdrawing from permitting things that can lead to indulgence or spiritual dullness, limiting food, comfort, entertainment. Now, I'm a very big believer in having all of the pleasure that the world has to offer, as long as it's done within halachic, realms. Can't do things you're not allowed to do outside halakha. Halakha is what guides me. Halakha is what inspires me. It's what draws me. It tells me what to do. It's my hashkafa, right? If I don't have self-restraint, I can't do anything. I tell the story, and it's worth repeating. I used to travel to Cleveland. My wife's family lived in Cleveland, Ohio, and so I drive in the summers from New York to Cleveland. It was a 7-hour drive. Not an easy drive with 3 children in the car under the age of 7. What's that? No Teslas back then. No video entertainment systems in my car at the time. I couldn't afford them. And so we're driving, and we had to pull over to get some gas. You can't drive in one tank. Today you can because of EVs, but then you couldn't do it. So we pull over to some gas station, and my son wants to come with me. He has to go to the bathroom, so I take him to the bathroom. And then there's the line. You got to pay, right? So I'm waiting in line, and of course they have all the candies there. So my son who's been in the car for 5 hours is going crazy. Candies? I need candies! And he points to this candy, and he's like, I want this candy. He's like running around in circles. He's going crazy already, whatever it is. This is too hyper. So I'm like, okay, let me see. I pick up the candy. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, Yaakov, it's not kosher. He's like, oh. Do you hear what I just said? That is so powerful that a 5-year-old kid can be taught that, hey, even though I know you want this, I'm so sorry you can't have it. And then end the tantrum, knowing there's nothing I could do about it. That, my friends, is power. Right? That self-restraint leads to greatness. Prishut leads to tahara, to purity. Right? Brings to holiness. Right? Purity of heart, of intention, doing good, not for honor or reward, but purely l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. How many of us can say that what we do is l'shem shamayim? What I'm doing is for the sake of heaven. What I'm doing is not for my personal gain or want and interest. It's just because it's the right thing to do. That's what this system is supposed to get you to. And purity goes to holiness. What is holiness? Holiness brings to humility. But what is Kedusha? At this stage, a person is not just doing holy things, they become holy. Even mundane acts are elevated, like eating to have the strength for Torah, working to support a family with dignity. That leads to anava. So let's go back. What is Kedusha? When I say holiness, there's 4 steps here. You have nikiyut, cleanliness, prishut, right? Self-restraint, tahara, purity, kedusha, holiness. What is holiness? Holiness doesn't mean that I can't have a wagyu steak. It doesn't mean that I can't enjoy the finer things in life. I can't have a cigar or a nice well of scotch. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. I've been waking up really early, like 4:30, 3:30. I've only been getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep this week. I don't know why. My mind is racing before the holidays. I can't slow it down, so I'm not sleeping properly. So I apologize. I should have taken a nap. And then today I'm just making the sheet all morning. So it's been one of those days. So I'm sorry again. And I haven't had a coffee. This is just a tea. I stopped drinking coffee. Just need to see I'm going to try it for a month. I don't want to be controlled by any substance. Don't you feel like you are? I am. Coffee has an impact. When I have coffee, I'm like, when I don't have a coffee after 3 days, I got headaches. I can't be without the coffee.
My husband, he doesn't have it for a day, and he gets major headaches.
Yeah. So for me, by the way, and I only did 1 coffee a day. I don't do more than 1 coffee a day. Yeah, one a day. And I'm super sensitive. And I also felt like, if I had coffee at the wrong time of day, I can't sleep at night. It has a very deep impact on me. I'm just too sensitive to it. So I just wanted to slow it down. I just started drinking decaf, and decaf is really bad for you. So I'm just down to teas.
Why is decaf bad for you?
I don't know. They say it's bad for you. You take out the caffeine. The question is whether or not if caffeine is actually natural to the coffee bean, or they're actually adding it to it. Like when you bake something, you're stripping out some of the nutrients. So a lot of the coffee places will actually artificially insert caffeine back into the coffee bean. It's kind of like this is the same issue with tobacco. Tobacco naturally has nicotine, right? So when you go ahead and you dry out the nicotine, the tobacco, you kill the nicotine. So in order to preserve the nicotine, the companies put the nicotine back, but they put back much larger dosages of nicotine into because they want you to be addicted to it. So I don't know if that's what happens with coffee, but I have a suspicion it might. So because I haven't found the right one yet, but I'm looking out there. Anyway, so right now I'm doing tea.
Can I mention something about Kedusha?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I arrived in Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion, and I take the taxi to Jerusalem and feel Yerushalayim Kedusha.
Yeah. Well, I feel it.
When I go to Tel Aviv, it's done. I feel it.
When I'm on a plane, if I'm sleeping, I wake up. And I know when I wake up, I'm in Israel. Not landing. In the airspace, I know when I'm in Israel already. I feel it. I'm like, I can't be asleep here. I'm like, oh, we're here. And we're here. I know it. We're in the Israeli airspace. Kedusha, the avir, even the air of Israel, somehow is able to revive you. Which is different, by the way, than my experience going to India. Because when you're in India and you're flying, you know that you're in India. If you ever go, you'll understand. No. Before though, I'm saying in the air before you land, you know you're there. There's a smell that the country has. That becomes. I mean, it's curry. It's curry. It could be curry. I don't know. It could be when I was there. It was just like a very cloudy day, but it was like orange, like the fog. Everything was just like it was just different. A different world. I just knew I was in India. It sticks to you as well, isn't that? In India, I was in a hotel where they wash your sheets 3 times a day. I'm like, oh, that's such a nice extra feature, but they have to do it because everything gets sticky and gross and smelly. So they're washing everything constantly and so on and so forth, trying to keep things smelling beautiful and so on and so forth. Anyway, so you have this thing called Kedusha. Kedusha, holiness, is not saying, oh, prishut leads to Kedusha, which means I can't have a steak, right? So you have zihirut, right? Zrizut, moving quickly, nikiyut, cleanliness, moral clarity, self-restraint, purity, and then you have something called holiness. And you might think that holiness means living a life of complete abstinence. And that's not what it means. You know what is Shabbat? You know what Kadosh is? Shabbat Kodesh. What is Shabbat Kodesh? If you tell a non-Jew what that means, what does Shabbat Kodesh means? It means that I come home from synagogue, I sing together with my family, I bring out a nice bottle of wine, I have the nicest china out, I have the nicest foods out, a 10-course meal, apps, salads, soup, 5 or 6 mains to choose from, different kinds of rices and salads and whatever it is. And then after that, there's dessert. I remember the first time I went to my first proper Orthodox dinner, and I'm like, oh my God, the challah was just like, oh, this is amazing, fresh homemade challah. And so I'm eating the challah. They're like, no, you're clearly a rookie. You don't overload the challah. There's a lot more food coming out. So I finally finished the food. I'm like, oh my God. And then dessert came out. I'm like, there's more. There's dessert. This happens every week. I'm like, I'm in. I'm doing this. I want this. I want to have fresh made cookies every week, or whatever the cakes were, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's crazy. But would you think that's holiness, or was that gluttony? So it feels like it's gluttony. And by the way, Shabbat can become gluttonous. It doesn't have to be, though. So how do you make it non-gluttonous? How do I go ahead? I mean, when do you ever eat like that? I'm just saying I don't know what people. My wife's a very religious cooker, Friday, Shabbat cooker, and she's making things that are like she's always making too much food, right? Now, I should weigh like 100 pounds more. This is me, whatever I am right now. This is me with restraint. Can you imagine where I would be without it? I'm just saying it would be a disaster. There's just so much. I would love to have like a 1-course meal, but that's not Shabbat for my wife. Shabbat is making the salads. She doesn't want to buy it in Uri's. She wants to make it herself. It's not the same if I'm not making it. She wants to make her challah. Now she makes her sourdough and a regular challah because some of the kids like it, some of the kids don't like it. I'm not asking for it. I told her, just don't do anything. I'm happy to go to whatever it is and pick everything up. I don't want you to be stressed. I'd rather have a calm, happy wife and have a calm Shabbat and worry about all the stuff, right? But for her, it's this 100%. It's a deep, and I get it, and I'm supportive of her passions, and I want her to be happy with it. So, and I go along for the bumpy ride, trying to make sure that all these things are done before Shabbat. I get it, but it can become gluttonous. What's her motivation? Why do you think she does it? So it comes from a passion of purity, right? It comes from a pure heart and intention. She's doing it because she loves Shabbat, and that's her way of experiencing Shabbat, is its way of experiencing godliness. It's about experiencing holiness in time. So she breaks it down and she does it. So how do you make sure it's not gluttonous? Well, if I'm eating the meal for the sake of eating the meal, it can become gluttonous. Or I can stop, I can make the bracha of hamotzi and really say it with meaning. I could stop and say, I'm going to take a bite and I'm going to share divrei Torah with my meal. I'm going to make a l'chaim, I'm going to make a toast, I'm going to be mindful about the people that are suffering and need brachot. I'm going to do things in my meal to elevate it from just a gluttonous act into something more. Why do we do that? We do this because on some level, to become a tzaddik, the kuf, it's interesting because you'll see in a moment, the kuf could also be read as kof, as a monkey. Yeah. Kuf and kof, same letters, right? It's a monkey. So on the one hand, if you choose properly with the right intention, and if holiness, kadosh, kedusha, which is kuf also, is right, you could elevate and become something more godlike. And if you get it wrong, you go down. The kuf, by the way, is interesting because it's got the resh, and it's the letter that goes down. It's connecting downwards. So on the one hand, you have the power of being elevated up, and if you get it wrong, the power of being elevated down. And this is something. Maybe there's something here about sheva pa'amim yipol tzaddik v'kama. A righteous person will fall 7 times and go down, and then come back up. This yo-yo. There's no straight streaming rocket launching yourself out into growth and greatness. It's always going to be a steady movement of up and down movements, up and down. Hopefully, you keep going up and up and up and up. But you got to come down before you keep going up, right? It's like Bitcoin. It's going to come down before it goes back up, right? So we come back down to like 110, 107 before It goes to 250 before the end of the year. Bezrat Hashem. Inshallah. Say amen. All right, fine. So, by the way, if it does do that, that's actually a very bad sign for the economy. It means that we're losing faith in the U.S. dollar. It means we're losing faith in the economy around the world. All G7 countries right now are going through massive economic upheaval, and no one knows why. But I'll tell you where it's coming from. It's coming from a lack of faith and trust in governments anymore. Yeah, I know. There's massive riots right now in France. They're shutting the whole government down and so on and so forth. And we know because they have a kof running their government. So anyway, let's keep going. So Kedusha is not just, holiness is not just this, hey, I'm holy, the holy man, like the Pope. It's the opposite. It's using the material world because you are made of body and soul, elevating the body and connecting it to the soul. That's what holiness is. And that leads to anivut, to humility, right? Recognizing one's smallness before God. Truly humble person never feels entitled. And this awareness leads to a deep reverence. Moses, very most humble man, because he saw his greatness as God-given. It wasn't from him. Everything he had was coming from God. Okay. Am I missing something? Page 4? Okay, got it. Sorry. Wrong way. Then you have Yird Chet, right? Fear of sin. Okay, fear of sin brings you to Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so fear of sin is not fear of punishment, not dread of damaging one's relationship with God. That, right? It's about awe. Awe opens the soul to spiritual perception. Do you have wonder? When you think about God, is it out of, I'm doing it because of fear, I don't want to get zapped, I don't want to get hit by lightning, or is it because I'm awe-inspired by what God and Judaism is asking me to be involved in? If there's no awe in the relationship in your Judaism, you can never ever get to this next step, right? What is the next step? What is Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration? Divine inspiration brings us to resurrection. But what is that? The level of spiritual insight and prophecy. What is Nevuah? What is that? Where the person becomes a conduit for divine wisdom. That does not sound very, lack of a better word, sexy. Like, why? If that's what I'm aiming for, to be a conduit for divine wisdom, I'm not interested. You can't sell that to me. I'm not going to win that. But can I tell you what Ruach HaKodesh really is? It is having an intimate moment with God. It is a divine kiss. It is a moment. No, it's not that. It's much more. It's much more than a high five. It's a warm, intimate embrace.
So how do you know?
I'm saying right now we can't get there.
Oh, we cannot.
We cannot get there. Meaning, but if you have to ask me, like, we can't get there right because the temple is broken. The machine that allows us to have this ultimate connection has been destroyed. And it'll only come back by the rebuilding of this third temple. Right? Again, as Jews, it is absolutely insane how much hatred there is in the world for Jewish people today. Insane. We thought that anti-Semitism, at least I did not think it would ever get as bad. I never thought I'd see it as bad as it. I mean, I always knew that like it was lurking in the background, but I never thought it would be this bad. You know, I never thought it would be this bad. Tucker Carlson could get on TV, and Carlson, you know, and talk about how, you know, Hamas are freedom fighters and maybe Israel's a real terrorist. You know, how does that even happen? It's not. Of course, I believe he's being funded by Qatar, and that's part of the influence. But you justify it. That justification for the hatred is coming from a negative spiritual place. And that negative spiritual energy comes from where? It comes from our power of speaking negative things to each other. And that hatred that we have for Jews and non-Jews and what's happening in Israel with the Haredim not going to the armies and all that. It's a disaster. It's a disaster right now. It's a disaster.
What is the root cause of the hatred for Jews?
I mean, I can give you several answers. One answer is that the hatred is really a metric of the society's moral decay. So it's like the canary in the coal mine. They start dropping dead. You have gas. You have a gas leak. You're in trouble, right? That's on one level. We're there to remind the world of their spiritual mission. which is to become more godlike, not less. This country, I believe, has been blessed for so many years, for so long, because of its adherence to its Judeo-Christian values. Chesed, there's no country in the world, in the history of the world, that has done the kind of chesed that this country has done for the world. We brought more people out of poverty. We fed more people than anyone else in the world. The good deeds, the actions, everything this country was built on, the foundations of being a kind, loving, accepting, not accepting the people that want to destroy you. By the way, if the founding forefathers would see what we're doing right now with these migrants, they'd be appalled. They would never allow it. Never allow it. I think it was Adams who there were some Islamic ships that attacked U.S. ships, and he sent the U.S. Army and burnt down, and destroyed them, hunted them, found them, and there's no acts of war and treason were taken very seriously. They would never allow this world to exist right now. The world we're in right now would not exist 100 years ago. We stomped out, gone, goodbye. Right? But we've lost moral clarity. We have a broken system that's corrupt. And when that corruption seeps in, and there's no one safeguarding speech, there's no one advocating for the development of spiritual greatness, that becomes a morally bankrupt country, and the people that suffer first are the Jews. So this is a global phenomenon. Everywhere it's an issue. There's nowhere safe for us. And it's supposed to be this way. Why? Because at the end of the days, before Mashiach comes, we're supposed to get ourselves to a point where there's nowhere for us to go. There's nowhere for you to turn. And you're locked into saying, help me. But crying out from the deepest parts of your heart, I need your help. I can't do this by myself. So I believe that all of this is kind of like pigeonholing us into this one little area in history. And we're getting so close to this revelation. Remember, the darkness always precedes the light. And it's got to get really dark for that light to be really bright. And I feel like we're getting there. I'm still heartbroken about this young couple yesterday in Israel. This kala who found out that her chatan on the day of the wedding. It's heartbreaking.
What happened to him?
He took his life. PTSD. Yeah, PTSD from the war. And he just was depressed, and he took his life. Yeah, there's lots of stuff that has to happen. And the numbers, by the way, the PTSD right now, you know how much PTSD there is with young kids under the age of 10 who are bedwetting and not sleeping at night and afraid. We don't know how bad it is, and we're so lucky to be where we are, having this conversation where we are and being able to talk about it like this as they're doing it, but to go through it, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. But Ruach HaKodesh and Tchiyat HaMeitim is what we're aiming for, a world where we get the truth. The dead know it's true. They know it's true. They can't escape it. You and I live in a world of uncertainty. We live in a world of, maybe this is the best of all worlds, and there's nothing else. I don't know. I believe there's something more. There was just someone sent me actually today. I haven't listened to it. I'll forward it to the group. There's a podcast on a girl who can speak through not telekinesis, telepathy. She's a girl who cannot speak with her words. She has no speech, but you can sit with her in a room and you could hear her voice in your head. And it's a whole entire scientific exploration on telepathy and how telepathy, what it is, how it works. And then there's all the kinds of telepathy. There's a telepathy that comes out from a room like this. When the speaker is speaking, it's like you're tapping into this. All the science is coming out now, and we're learning things that are crazy. We know now that there is evidence for consciousness to continue to exist post-death. There's scientific evidence for that right now. It means that when someone dies, we have scientific evidence that their mind and their thoughts don't evaporate. They continue to move on.
Forever?
We don't know forever. We know that it continues to exist.
For the year?
We don't know. There's no way to measure it. We just there's a couple of books. I'm waiting for this book to come. I will know more in a few weeks. It should be coming next week. It's all the scientific research done in the last 5 years. There's been this. I spoke about it a few weeks ago. That there's a book called she wrote a book called The Signals, a new book, I forget what it's called, on her experience of communicating with the dead. She's a scientist, a neuroscientist who's measuring it, and not like. We'll talk about it more, I'm sure.
For what mechanism though? For what type of?
How did she experience it? She had her husband died, and she just had all these weird things happening in her home, and she runs the neuroscience department in Cambridge. She's a very bright woman, and she knew that she was either going crazy or she just didn't know. But she kept having this thing over and over again, and so she started doing her own research using science and finding other people with similar experiences, and then doing the research and finding a study, and so on and so forth. I don't know more than that, but that's what the premise of the book is.
It's like through paranormal activity.
It's she says that in the short interview I watched of her, that she can train you how to communicate with people that are no longer here. In the same way, like mediums, you talk about mediums, go to a medium. She says there's a scientific way of doing it, and she could prove it. That's what she's saying. I don't know if it's true, just saying what she's saying. And she has the credentials to sound as someone who's being very true, but a lot of people with very big credentials have told us about COVID, and we knew that they were wrong. So we don't know. Anyway, we digress. The goal is Techiyat Meitim. The goal is to get ourselves to a place where we get the resurrection of the dead. Why? Because the dead know the truth. They come back and like, oh, we know where we were, and let me tell you what's on the other side. This is what was happening there. You can't believe me, but we're all back, and we're here to tell you the truth. You can't deny that. If someone rose up from the dead, if we were walking down, there's that cemetery on Ocean Parkway, between J and K. Imagine walking by, you're coming out of Bnei Yosef, and all of a sudden all the tombstones start to shake, and everything's falling down, and then you see the ground opening up, and you just see the Thriller video, like these things coming out of the ground, and you're like, oh, people, their skin coming back onto their bones, and like, oh, these people are back, and they're talking about, oh my God, and that's a crazy thing to see. But if you saw that, okay, the first thing you'd be thinking is for sure I'm like having some kind of trippy experience. I must have had shrooms or something else that I'm hallucinating right now. But once you've pinched yourself and you've known that you're not hallucinating anymore, what does that do to you? Right? That experience changes you forever. What's the first question you ask to someone who's been dead for 100 years? What did you see? What's there? What's going on? And they start telling you. First thing that happens, it's true. God exists. Torah is true. Everything God said is true. You can't understand reward and punishment in this world. You can't understand why the righteous suffer and why we can't even understand it there. They start coming back telling you things. That changes you forever. And you know what it does at the same time? It limits your free will. I have less choice now because I witnessed that. Yeah. I can't choose to deny God's existence. I can't choose to deny the veracity of the Torah and its principles. I'm stuck. I just saw something that forever changes me. And that one change, right, leads to this messianic era of us living in a world with God, man and God, higher moral principles, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's the world we want to live in. This is by the way, this system is, I believe, what our ancestors bought into. They saw this. When did every single Jew die? There's one time in history where every Jew dropped dead at once. Do you know? Anyone know when? When did Techiyat Meitim happen? Happened at Mount Sinai. When God came down and spoke the words, Anoch Hashem Elokecha, it said that every single Jewish person died. And God resurrected them. And then he said the second. You know what happened? Every Jew died again. And then before he could do the third one, they said, Moshe, stop! We can't do this anymore. Too painful. And that was our mistake. Had we heard the full of the Seder Dibrot, we would have been elevated to a much higher state. We would have gone to Israel, brought Mashiach, and the whole world history, as you know, would be very different. No, he did not want it to happen. Does God want a person to commit suicide?
No, but obviously
It happened. He does not interfere when it comes to our free will. The one thing that makes you God-like is your ability to choose, and he will never interfere with that. Once he does that, then the system is rigged. He could move things around. A guy could pull out his gun and say, I'm going to shoot you, and he could create it that the gun, how many stories of Holocaust survivors? People tell you they were on the floor with their heads up, the German soldier put out the gun and like it got jammed. They get another gun, got 4 or 5 guns got jammed. So that God can intervene, but most of the time he does not want to. He doesn't want to. And when he does intervene, even with miracles, he makes it seem like it's a natural phenomenon. The reason why the Israelis are so smart is because they're technologically so advanced. No. The Chinese are smarter. If you let's look at India. Okay, India has 1.4 billion people. Let's take 10% of the Indian population, the smartest people in India. How many people do you have now? 140 million people? That's a lot of people. Okay, how big is Israel? How many Jews in Israel? 7 million in Israel. Okay, 15 million around the world. Okay, that's like still a magnitude of 100 times more. Let's take the smartest people of that 140 million people and take the smartest people of that group of people. That's all the Jewish people. I promise you we're not that smart. We are where we are because something is guiding us, whether you like it or not. It's happening, and it's happening to you. Okay, you're either aware of it or not. Some of you are more aware of it or not, but if you're not in the process of building the sensitivity to find that connectivity to it, you're not experiencing it. You're not experiencing godliness. Rav Hirsch says self-discipline does not mean suppressing natural human instinct, right? He says instincts are not inherently good or bad. They are tools meant to serve a divine purpose. When these drives are channeled properly within the bounds defined by the Torah, they're elevated and sanctified. But when they are divorced from purpose and exceed those limits, they give rise to coarseness and ultimately to evil, which is the world that we have right now. When we've ignored it, we're going to tell people that a guy can be a girl, that a guy can go ahead and participate in girls' sports. We're going to change the definition of what it means to be a male and a female. We're going to allow a 37-year-old man who identifies as a 12-year-old girl to go into a girl's bathroom. Why would you do that? What are you, nuts? Insanity. No moral clarity. No self-discipline. You have a world that is destroyed. Maharal. Once a year in Yom Kippur, we leave behind our mundane existence and strive to emulate the holiness of the angels, refraining from eating, drinking, other earthly pursuits. On all other days of the year, we don't imitate the angels completely, but we echo their holiness as they proclaim Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Right? So too we declare, let us sanctify your name in this world as they sanctify it on the highest heavens. During Kedusha, we stand still with our feet together, as do angels who surround the divine throne. We rise up on our toes, symbolically reaching up towards the heavens, uniting the lower being with the heavenly hosts and proclaiming God's sanctity, the world of prayer. That's what we want. We want to elevate this lower part and this higher part. The letter Kuf has a gematria of 100. The number 100 signifies completion. It is a product of 10 times 10, the full cycle of decimal system. So significant is the number 100 that in our times, when the temple service is no longer offered, our sages teach that one should strive to recite the minimum of how many brachot a day? 100 brachot. That is the completion of your day. You should be striving to make 100 blessings every single day. Rabbi Reuven Ibragimov says spelling the letter kof is the same that as kof, kuf or kof, meaning monkey. Twice the biblical times when men fortified their divine image, denied the existence of God, their physiognomy changed and they became to resemble apes. There are 2 times where this happens. The first time is the generation of Enosh, when people began making idols and calling them gods. And the second time is the generation of the Tower of Babel, when people attempted to gain mastery over all humanity and sought to reject divine authority. They lost their share in the world to come and turned into apes, spirits, and demons, the Gemara says. Right? Maybe the cavemen that we're observing are these groups of people that were punished to become lower human beings for losing their free will because of the sins they committed. Siddhei Chaim, Rav Friedlander, says the fact that the Satan letter Kuf represents both Kedusha and Kof offers a deep insight to the human condition. This is what he says. He says, man is created in the image of God and is only a little lower than the angels. Although he can never reach God's level of holiness, he is charged with emulating him and is assured that he can scale celestial heights. But he can do so only through the sincere and directed effort. When man behaves as a reflection of divine image, his potential is boundless. But if he merely mimics what a person should be, without genuine inner growth, he becomes little more than a spiritual primate. Though a monkey resembles and imitates man more than any other animal, it can never become a human being. No matter what you do, you dress him in a fine suit, put him in a classroom, teach him algebra. No matter what happens, a monkey is a monkey. Monkey see, monkey do. It can never change. The Arizal says two letters combined together, the kuf and the resh, right? Above and the zayin, descending below. The line on the left, the resh hovers like an aura above the descendant zayin, just as the yud is the only letter in the alphabet suspended in midair, and only the lamed rises above the ceiling of the letter of the letters. The kuf is the only standard form letter in olam hazeh, this world, that descends below the floor of the other letters. In contrast, the four final letters, right, nun, tzadi, and fe, and chaf, are associated with the world to come, also descend, but their descent symbolizes the filling of all reality with divine revelation. The descent of the kuf, however, reflects an ambivalent force, the potential for descent into impurity or ascent to tshuva and divine connection. That's why the kuf is interesting. It could either become kadosh or a kof. You decide. The descending of the foot, the kuf, reaches below the ground line, into the depths of the grave, so to speak, alluding to the verse, her feet go down to death. Her refers to Malchut, personified by Chava. Malchut, by the way, is feminine. The idea of a kingdom is a feminine idea, not a masculine idea. In a masculine idea, you wouldn't want a kingdom. You'd want to be the king of your own castle. Okay, but Malchut is feminine. Chava, the first woman whose actions breached the original barrier separating the realm of life and death. This breach allowed the klipa, the shell, referring to the spiritual impurity, to draw energy from Kedusha, from holiness, as represented by the kuf in the word kadosh. The descendant of the kuf reflects the spiritual vulnerability. It reaches into the profanity and allows Tumah to suckle from holiness. Before the final rectification of the world, when death will be swallowed forever, the three impure klipot draw sustenance from the excess or misdirected energies of Kedusha. This is mirrored in Chava's addition to God's command not to eat from the tree of knowledge. She is also prohibited from touching it, and the kuf can imply to touch, which the serpent exploited to seduce her into eating and explained by the sages. The two letters that form kuf and zayin, right, zayin and resh, spell zar, meaning foreign or strange. This root appears in the phrase as machshava zara, foreign thought, or avodah zara, foreign worship. Even within the Torah, a non-kosher Israelite is termed a zar, a foreigner. And it's forbidden to perform temple services. Strangeness, then, is a relative term. Even the Creator, from our limited and unrectified human consciousness, appears as a foreigner and incomprehensible. Almost finished. Oh my gosh, it's so late. Yet the zayin of the kuf descends and feeds the klipa of the resh. The crown of the letter hovers above like an aura, untouched and protective, symbolized by the residual life force of Kedusha, ensuring that eventual purification of all rectification. As the verse promises, I will remove the spirit of impurity from the earth, and with it death will be wiped away forever. Why are we so obsessed with getting rid of death? Do you remember the song by Queen, Who Wants to Live Forever? Right? Who wants to live? Anyway, it was a old song from the 80s. And most people, from a philosophical point, will tell you no one would ever want to live forever. You live forever, you won't watch everyone die, everything dies. Why would you want to see all that pain? No one could ever handle psychologically living forever. But Jews are obsessed with this notion of bringing back the dead. And the reason why we are, I believe, I suspect, has something to do with the idea that we believe in real justice. It can't be that someone really good in this world suffered his whole life and does not get a second chance. So the system itself creates a reality where one day you will have the ability of getting all the justice you want. You'll see God's righteousness. You'll see his tzidkiyut. You'll see that he was always fair. You will see that what you perceived as being negative and unjustly was in fact positive and very justly. But you won't know that until time comes to an end. Okay. This next piece is long and it's a bit deep. And in a nutshell, number 100 represents the state of perfection and completion. It reflects the inter-inclusion, hit-kalut, of the 10 sfirot, where each one contains all the others. The structure is mirrored physically and spiritually in 10 times 10 matrix, each square being by a aleph and bet, representing holistic integration, meaning there's a system of all the letters integrating into something that is higher. The whole physical world is a reflection of the sfirot. There are 10 dimensions of reality. We still don't know what they are right now. I think we're at the 6 dimensions of reality right now, or 4 dimensions of reality, but we're not at 10. We've been talking about 10 dimensions of reality forever as Jews. Okay, there's more to this world than you and I can comprehend. And I just want to end with this idea. You could read the next on your own. It's definitely interesting. But the idea is like this. Kuf is begging that you live a life of elevation. You pull yourself out of your animalistic natures and become something bigger and better. The Kuf represents 100, the potential of breaking free. How old was Abraham when he had a baby? 100. Why? Maral says, because at 100 you are no longer connected to where you came from. You could finally break free from your parents' genetic makeup, and you could forge your own path. You're no longer defined by what was, but instead by your actions. That's what 100 is. You don't want to be the kof. You don't want to be living a life of monkey see, monkey do. You want to live a life of inspiration. And the way we get there, my friends, is through this process of trying to live a life of Kedusha. Wishing you an amazing week. Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week. Shabbat Tov, everybody.